Welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations, a series of short and shareable conversation starters for those of us who have or love and support people with a complicated and beautiful brain. Here's your host, Angela Geddes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Kitchen Table Conversations. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Today, we're going to take a little bit of time to talk about happiness and what kinds of things we all can be doing in order to sort of experience a little bit more of that. I read an article this morning from Psychology Today that gives us all kinds of tips towards, finding this elusive happiness. And I feel like I need to start by saying that I think sometimes happiness is a little bit overrated. My goal is to find peaceful moments and a level of contentment, when we can feel satisfied with what we're doing, who we're hanging out with, what kinds of things that we're experiencing that gives us a sense of purpose, that kind of thing. Contentment. Of course, we're looking for happy moments. We're looking for joyous occasions. We're looking for healthy relationships that provide all of those, opportunities for us to feel that kind of joy and really good things. But happiness on a regular basis, it's not realistic. Life is hard. Life is full of ups and downs. And, I've said before in previous podcasts, that I think sometimes we do ourselves a disservice when we're always looking for or, feeling happy, because then I think we feel like we're doing something wrong. I've had people coming into my office kind of pathologizing things that are actually quite typical. So, when we lose a job or when our agency has just been downsized, or when there's been some significant changes in our lives, when we're dealing with separation or child support payments and changes to our career, or returning to school, or our kids are sick, or our kids aren't doing well. All of these things make life really, really challenging at times. So it is difficult to find happiness overall, or even to know what that feels like at times. So I think that it's normal to go through these ups and downs, but I think it's really important to focus more on how we handle these ups and downs and how we feel about these ups and downs, rather than the fact that they're happening, because these things happen whether we like them or not. And there's so many things in our lives that happen that are outside of our control. And, I used to have a neighbor who said something like, I don't have an anger management problem. People just have to stop ticking me off. And, we all can laugh at that, but realistically, our feelings are our feelings. The way we experience certain circumstances are ours, but how we learn to respond to those is what we are accountable for, and what can either make our worlds a little bit easier to handle or a little bit more difficult. So it's not about being angry. It's about how do we think about that anger, and how do we have opportunities to interrupt those thoughts and to decide whether or not they're actually helping us or hurting us. So this podcast, again, is about, taking some time to evaluate what is happiness to us. What are we actually looking for? And I think that to start, I think it's really important for all of us to take a look at some of our values and our life domains, and what kinds of things are we doing in order to put us in the best position to be well and to experience all of the emotions, but hopefully more peaceful and content and joyous moments than otherwise. So it is important for us to be honest with ourselves and take a good look at, what kinds of things are important to me. Is it important to have good health? Is it important to have healthy relationships? Is it important to have meaningful employment? Is it important to give back and to be a contributing member or a volunteer at a social agency that's really, really close to our heart or important to us? Do we need to sleep better? Do we need to eat better? Do we need to take better care of our physical health? Do we need to travel or engage in more adventures? Do we need to be more financially responsible? What kinds of things can we be doing that will make our lives a little bit lighter? and what's doable. So I think that's really, really important. And then I also think that it's important for us to kind of focus on what it is we can do and remind ourselves that we are capable of getting through some really, really tough times, and we're capable of doing probably more than what we often give ourselves credit for. So give yourselves a little confidence boost sometimes, but I always caution people to be realistic around that. So I really don't believe that everybody can be anything that they want to be if they just work hard enough. It's not possible for all of us to do everything out there, but we all do have some special levels of interest and certainly some skills, and it is good to hone in on those and to really nurture them, and to continue to find things that make us feel good and that we can do well. And I think that it's also important, like anything else, we train for a lot of things. We train for a marathon, we train for the Olympics, we train for employment, but we don't really think much about what we can do differently in order to be more happy or to be more content and to be more at peace with some of the circumstances. So we have to believe in the opportunity to grow, and we also have to believe that in order to have different results, we have to be willing to do things differently. So even when the world is treating us really, really well, we can be grateful for that, but we also have to realize that that's temporary, just like some of the distressing circumstances are temporary. But those things are, again, outside of our control. How do we adjust to them? And if we keep just feeling like the world is happening to us, we can often feel like we don't have much control over anything. And that can leave us feeling very vulnerable, and that our happiness or our mood or our circumstances are largely dependent on other people or other circumstances. And I think that we need to challenge that sometimes, because yes, other circumstances can be very, very difficult if you're dealing with a sudden death in the family, for example, or a divorce, or, a sudden job loss or a move. All of those things are obviously very distressing, but we can either make those problems bigger or smaller by the way that we respond. So I think that's a very powerful statement. And it is important for us to realize that if we want different things and if we want to handle things in a better way, we have to choose to do things differently or to look at things in a different way. One of the things that we can do really, really quickly is interrupt some of the negative thinking that often follows a distressing circumstance. So it's natural when we're going through something significant to be thinking about it. And the purpose of our thoughts is to help us to plan for the future, help us to learn from our past mistakes, for example, or help us to learn to evaluate different kinds of relationships and what we need to look for moving forward. But once the learning is done, once we have come to terms with what's happened, those thoughts don't necessarily serve us well. So we can interrupt them, and we can try to switch our perspective or switch our focus on things that are going to bring us more peace or more contentment and closer to our values. And I think that's another thing that's really, really important, that when we live towards our values and really, again, going back to our life domains and the things that are important to us, when we're working towards, say the value is good health, and we're exercising and we're eating properly, even if we do experience some level of illness, we know that we've done our best. So, handling those setbacks can be a little bit easier. And in fact, we've put ourselves in the best possible position to fight whatever it is that ails us. Same goes for relationships. If healthy, respectful relationships are important to us and we continue to do our part towards that, even if relationships break down, if we know that we are living towards our values and being as respectful and compassionate and kind and considerate and tolerant as possible, even if things do go south, we know that we've done our best. So living towards our values is something that's really, really important. And I can guarantee that when we nurture those values and behave in ways that are going to take us closer to them, life does get easier for us. And quite frankly, for those around us, because we don't let some of those little things bother us quite the same, or we don't respond to them in the same way. And again, it's not about whether or not we are irritated or angry or frustrated. It's about how do we want to move forward in a good way? Do we want to make this problem bigger or smaller? And is our response going to do what for us and for the others around us? And finally, I want to just remind everybody that our brains don't really know the difference if we're actually experiencing something really peaceful and warm and fuzzy and lovely, or if we're just remembering it. So our bodies do react to wonderful memories just the same way as if we are experiencing them. And a good example of that is just quite the opposite too, that if you've ever remembered something that was pretty awful in your world, whether you've had an accident or, whether you've fallen down the stairs or something terrible has happened, like somebody really close to you has been injured or, something like that. When you remember that, your body reacts to it often. And your body also reacts really positively when you can take a moment and be mindful and remember sitting on the beach, for example, if that's your happy place, or in going for a horseback ride, if that's the place that brings you peace and joy. Your body goes back, and you can even be, sensitive to different smells and sensations and sounds and that kind of thing. So when we take a moment to use our imagination to take us back to a place that makes us feel really good, our bodies can experience that overwhelming feeling of peace and contentment and rest and relaxation as well. So I encourage everybody to use our imaginations in a positive way. And also, I guess I said finally, but I'm also going to say that media and music and social media and television shows really do influence our moods. So if you're feeling like you're less happy or less content, be mindful about what you put into your what you fuel yourself with. And maybe you need to take a break from social media. Maybe you need to take a break from the news and not listen to it every day. Maybe you just do yourself a favor and catch up on Monday mornings to say that you're aware of global events, but you're not saturated or oversaturated with some of the things that are not necessarily contributing to your overall mental wellness. So thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you have a lovely week. I also hope that you bring this conversation back to your own kitchen tables. With many thanks, Angela.